So what is going on, everybody? Fernando Silva here with another video, and Apple released iPadOS 15.2 Beta 2 to all developers to try out, test out, and see exactly how it's been running overall. And they also added a bunch of new security features and some other Find My features, which I think are going to be very welcome to everybody using 15.2 moving forward. So without further ado, let's talk about the build number, talk about how big it is, talk about some battery life, and then talk about those new features as well that came with iPadOS 15.2 Beta 2. Let's get into it. So let's hop right into this video, everybody. Let's zoom in a little bit because I know that everybody likes to see the iPad screen a little bit more close up. So let's get zoomed in. Now, let's go to the settings, start off this video. So if we go into the general, go into about, let's see what this build number is all about. You can see that we're on software version 15.2, and then the build number is 19C5036E. I believe that the last letter moniker that we were on was I, or maybe even J. But again, you can see that with Beta 2, we're going down in letters, which means we're getting closer to that RC edition. Apple normally, when they release Beta 1, they take about 2 weeks to release a second beta, and sometimes take another 2 weeks for the third beta, but that's kind of up in the air. So Apple might release now starting on a weekly basis after this one, or they might take another 2 weeks and then go on a weekly schedule. But we'll keep that in mind, and I'll keep you guys posted on exactly what that update schedule looks like. The next thing we're going to touch on is actually how large this was, right? So the update was about 620 megabytes for 15.2. So give yourselves about 1 to 1.2 gigs of extra space to make sure that it does get downloaded correctly and you have no issues while updating. Now, keep in mind that when I do mention this, it doesn't mean that it won't install, because it is replacing whatever was installed previously. But I just like to, have peace of mind, know that I have enough actual space to get this downloaded. So that's what we have in terms of size, 620.2 megabytes. It downloaded pretty quickly and updated even quicklier, if that's even a word. And before we get into the new features, we're actually going to talk about battery life right now. So let's go into the settings and see what we've been doing with battery life. As you guys can see, I've actually have low power mode on. I've been using low power mode as my default state of battery just to see if I've been getting any more battery life. And I started doing that on Monday, actually. And you can see that I've been on yellow this entire time. And again, that's by choice. The iPad is not doing that by default. The iPad by default goes into low power mode if you want it to, or it asks you to go into low power mode at 10% battery. But I've been doing it since pretty much 100% because it gives you low power mode temporarily reduces background activity like downloads and mail fetch until you can fully charge your iPad. So basically it just stops all the background noise, right? But let's go to a day over the last 10 days. We're getting about 3 hours and 10 minutes of screen on time, which is pretty terrible. In my opinion, that's pretty awful. Let's go on a day like Tuesday where you can see that we got a decent amount of screen on time, about 6 hours and 40 minutes, but you can also see that we went over 100% battery, which means I charged at some point, kind of replenished some of that battery. But again, so this probably means that on a full charge, I'm getting closer to 6 hours of screen on time, which that alone is really good for the state that I'm in. But again, Apple said 10 hours of battery life on these iPads, and I have the latest iPad. This is the M1 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I get it, we get the mini LED, but if you're gonna tell us that we're gonna have the same amount of battery as the previous versions, then give me that battery. Because if we go on a day like Monday and Tuesday, which have been on low power mode pretty exclusively, so this was a 100% day that I only got 4 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time. Now, in my opinion, that's pretty unacceptable, right? LumaFusion, 35%, about 2 hours, so pretty much means that I can get a little less than 6 hours of straight LumaFusion edits going. But again, we should be able to get a little bit more on a day like Tuesday, 3 hours and 15 minutes. PS Remote Play took up 31% of my battery, and that was only 45 minutes. So I could probably only play for like 2 hours straight on a single charge, on a full charge. And again, I was on low power mode this entire time. So overall, battery life still needs improvement. And again, I don't know if it's just the iPads at this point are just not good with battery life or battery optimization, or if the beta program is kind of messing things up. But let's see what Apple can do with like some public releases of 15.2. Leave some comments down below. How's your battery life doing if you're on the regular release schedule? If you're on 15.1, let me know how your battery life is doing. Are you getting more than 3.5 hours? Are you getting less? Always curious to know. So now we got the battery life out of the way, let's talk about some of these new features. So the first feature that I want to talk about is actually, it's kind of a sad feature if you really think about it, but I think it's a very needed feature, and I don't know, I kind of like that Apple brought this over. So it's called Legacy Contacts. So you click on here, go to Passwords and Security, let that load up, and then go to Legacy Contacts. So Legacy Contacts, your legacy contact can access and download data from your account after your death. So this is the idea of, let's say, you have a bunch of pictures and videos and memories on here, maybe some data on here that should be passed on. So basically what you can do is you press Legacy Contact, add someone you trust, choose someone you trust to have access to your data from your account after your death. Your legacy contact will need to provide an access key and copy of your death certificate to access data from your account. Pass down digital legacy. So it's basically a way to pass down all the data and information that's on your iOS and iPadOS devices down to somebody that you trust. Again, it's kind of a sad thought, but I think it's a needed thing because we have our lives in these devices now. All these memories that we've accumulated over the years, all the data, all the passwords of important stuff like your banking information, like the list goes on and on with how much you use these devices, that now it's pretty important to be able to pass this down so you're not just kind of lost, right? So kudos to Apple for bringing this on, making this an available feature to everybody on iOS and iPadOS, and I believe it will be coming to macOS as well. So that is legacy contacts. Really happy about this one. This next feature has all to do with child communication safety. So this was released with 15.2 beta 2, which I haven't personally been able to find, but I found a bunch of articles kind of talking about it. So it's basically a way to monitor your children and making sure that they're not sending any explicit images or explicit files or anything like that. So it works with kids under the age of 13 years old, and it doesn't really stop them. Like if somebody wants to send something, so instead of stopping the actual image from being sent, it notifies a parent like, hey, your child is about to send this, this, and this. And it also notifies the child like, hey, are you sure you want to send this? Because we're going to tell your parents, basically. So it's kind of like a tattletale system, which I think will work to deter kids from actually doing anything crazy. But again, if they really want to kind of stick it to the man and they don't really care what their parents think, they can still physically send it. And again, the way Apple does this is through machine learning and it's on device. So at no point is this being sent to an Apple server to then be scanned and Apple to check and give a yes or a no. This is all done on device with machine learning. So it stays 1,000,000% private, which again, Apple's always advocating for. That's basically what it is. It just deters your children from sending anything that, you wouldn't want them to send. So I'm all for features like this to keep everybody protected. So Apple's new safety feature in kids in messages. So another new feature that came to 15.2 is Hide My Email. Now, Hide My Email is available to pretty much everybody now at this point. And what it does is literally whenever you're creating a new account or signing into something, it hides your physical email. But now what's new about it is that in the native Apple Mail application, it allows you to hide your email when you're sending an email. Now, I love this feature. I don't use Apple's Mail app. I use Spike Mail, which is over here, and I love Spike Mail. So I'm gonna wait for third-party developers to get access to it in order to use it. But I think that is the main feature of Hide My Email, being able to send kind of anonymous emails to people that you need to get information from or something like that, but then also not give them your personal email so they're not bombarding you with emails moving forward. So that's what's new with Hide My Email. And then there's a couple new things that came into the settings app. So let's go into the podcast settings. So if you go into the podcast setting, if you guys use a podcast app, you're gonna see some nice welcome upgrades, right? So a lot of it has to do with customization and control over your podcast application. So one of the main ones that I saw was the skip buttons. So you can actually customize how far forward and how far backward you can allow the skip button to do. So you can go 10 seconds to 60 seconds for forward, and I believe the same thing, 10 to 60 seconds for back. Like normally by default on YouTube, for instance, it's a 10-second once you press the arrow key back and forth or double tap. It's a 10-second run on, and you can customize that as well. But with the podcast app, now you have that same kind of customization. You have the ability for cellular downloads and customize how much you're allowed to download over cellular. You have some external controls, and then you have the reset identifier. So reset the identifier used to report aggregate app usage statistics to Apple. So that's a new little feature that wasn't there before. Some nice little customization settings inside of the podcast settings. The next one I want to do is actually in the Find My app. So in Find My, if you have a bunch of items that are right here, you now have two new features. You have help return lost items. So if you click on this, it says when you find a lost item, you can check if the owner left a message to help return it, and then you press search and it'll search for a lost item. But then also there was a big worry that people were being like tracked by AirTags without even knowing. So Apple added this little feature to give us peace of mind, right? Items that can track me. So basically searches for AirTags around you that aren't yours, and then it'll ping them and let you know like, hey, there's an AirTag here that isn't yours. Are you sure you want it there? Or is it somebody else's? So awesome to have that there, just to kind of make sure that like if you're riding a bike or on a motorcycle, or if you leave your car parked, somebody can put an AirTag underneath it, and then you leave and you get tracked on the way home. Those are all things that you want to avoid at all costs. And Apple's letting you know like, hey, you can check for any AirTags that aren't yours that are on your person or near you. So kudos to Apple for bringing that forward. And then the last one that I noticed was actually in TV. So if you go to Apple TV, it looks like Apple TV got a new side menu. So they got the new store, which wasn't there before. I don't know if you guys noticed that. And then we have some other new features on the side. So you basically have a sidebar menu through the Apple TV app. But that's pretty much everything that I've noticed on iPadOS 15.2 Beta 2. We still are missing universal control. We still haven't gotten any new emojis, which we were promised, or new wallpapers, which we were promised. I'm still looking forward to universal control so I can kind of use this and macOS together and not use just this for like a sidecar sometimes, which I do on occasion, because it'd be really nice to just use iPadOS by itself, use macOS by itself, but then still have my peripherals talking to each other and being able to go from one to the other. That would be an amazing thing to see. But let's get out of this view and go to the normal view. So that's pretty much going to do it for this video, everybody. Like you saw, Apple did add some new features, some new privacy features that are always welcome when it comes to kind of solidifying your entity in this like internet world, which I'm all for. They added those child privacy features. They added the ability to use the hide my email with just a native email application, which I think is going to be the best use case, especially if Apple allows third-party email clients to be able to use that. Because right now the Find My Email only functions when you're like logging into something or maybe creating a new login inside of an application. But if you want to send an email with a actual different email, you have to use the native mail client by Apple, which I'm personally not a fan of. I use Spike. I love Spike. I've had plenty of videos on it. So hopefully they allow an API to allow third-party developers to use that feature on third-party email clients. That would be a huge win. And then we added the legacy contacts, which is a sad but much needed kind of feature because again, our worlds are now on these devices and there's a lot of memories on these devices. So when somebody does pass away, unfortunately, you're gonna want those memories, right? That's the main thing that you want. You're gonna want those memories, and adding the legacy contacts is just one step forward into actually getting that done. So kudos to Apple for kind of taking that step forward. Big fan of that. But overall, I'm enjoying the update. This iPadOS beta software since 15.0 has been very stable. If you guys do want to actually jump onto it, I do recommend hopping on it. Trying not to put it on a main device because I don't want you guys coming back to me saying, hey, this main device, now I can't use it, the battery life sucks, Put it on a secondary device if you guys have one, and if not, try your luck on the main device because you can always reset it if you do want to. But that's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys learned something new. Leave some comments down below. Did you guys update to iPadOS 15.2, Beta 2? Are you guys on the beta program, the public developer program? Let me know. I'm always curious. But that's gonna do it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, peace.